I know, that's exactly right. That the temple is a place for the Son of Man to manifest himself. That's why the temple was built. That's why temples are built. For thou knowest that we have done this work, that the Son of Man might have a place to manifest himself to his people. So what's the purpose of the temple? That the Lord may have a place to manifest himself unto us. And as we see, that is exactly what happened in Kirtland. And then the temple continues to serve as that purpose for us individually. Now, not quite in the same way, even though he certainly could happen.
Yeah.
But the temple is still generally a pretty public building, so we don't expect to have necessarily that literal appearance, personal appearance of the Son of Man in one of the temples. So when and how does that happen? Interesting question, because we know that temples, as you're saying, temples can look different at different times, at different places. A temple could be the tabernacle, Moses, like a tent. A temple can be a mountain. A temple at its most basic can be just an altar.
Yeah, Adam shows us that clearly.
Right. Adam, all he had was an altar that he built out of stone. He prayed to the Lord and he received heavenly messengers. The Lord accepted it. Well, we learn today that the purpose of temples in this dispensation is we learn the truths that it's really to bring us back to that patriarchal order of Adam, to where we can turn our homes into temples. So the purpose of modern temples is to have a place where the Son of Man may manifest himself, but if he's going to manifest himself to you personally, it's much more appropriate, don't you think, that manifestation happens in your home?
So I've thought about this a lot, because rightfully so, I don't want this to be taken out of context. Rightfully so, people talk about how they go to the temple to seek that closeness, that communion, that special outpouring of the Spirit that obviously is there in the temple. And that makes sense because of the way in which and the authority in which the temple has been dedicated and consecrated, set apart from the world. I get all of that. I don't want to take away from that. However, I think that at times in the church, we develop this culture of that's the place to go to receive that special communion with the Lord, with the Spirit. And I think that's maybe missing the mark a little bit and falling a little short of what's intended, because the church is not building temples because they believe that special spirit or that special relationship with the Lord can only be maintained in the temple. The church is building so many temples because it's seeking to provide the power and the authority of the temple to as many of God's children as possible, so that then, as you mentioned, they can go home and seek to cultivate and build an environment in which that power and that Spirit can be drawn on anytime, anywhere, anyhow the individual needs it, right? So we've talked about this before, where start looking and thinking of your home as a temple. I fully understand some people are in very different circumstances and situations. Everyone's situation is unique.
Well, your temple might be your room.
That's what I was saying. Start thinking of ways, don't rationalize and say, well, because of my circumstances, my husband's not a member, or my wife's not a member, or my house is chaos, or whatever. That may be true, but start small then. Say, I have a closet, I can organize it, I can clean it up, and I can make that a special place where I go to commune directly with the Lord and to start to develop that spirit of the temple. And then maybe from there, you can expand it out and branch it out. I know, having 5 small kids, it's very difficult to look at my entire house as a temple. But I can say there are very specific places in my home that even when I'm busy doing something else, if I walk into those places, my mind immediately goes to, this is a sacred spot for me. This is holy ground for me, and it's not to be trifled with.
It's your little celestial.
100%. So start thinking of it like that, and you will be amazed at the Son of Man manifesting himself. You will start to get a sense and start to feel that happening in your life. Like all things in the gospel, you don't go from level 0 to level 100 all at once. You start to see the seeds growing, building towards that manifestation.
And that ties into the principle that the Lord will accept whatever you can build.
That's right.
Whatever you can provide and dedicate to him as a temple in your home, he will accept that. And the core teaching is enter into thy closet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Christ taught. That's what you just shared. That give to the Lord what you can. But the principle of having a sacred space, like this is what Elder Bednar has been teaching.
100%. Yes.
That the combination of holy places and sacred time, that comes together in the home. That's where it is to be implemented, is in the home. So whether you have the capacity to turn your entire home into a temple or just your closet or wherever, it's an important principle to do so.
I think you and I can both testify very personally and very deeply that the greatest manifestations of the Spirit we have experienced have not been in the temple. And I'm not seeking to take away from the experiences that some people do have in the temple.
And we have also had revelatory experiences.
100%. Yes. I don't want to take away from that. But for me, the most personal, the most powerful, and the most special witnesses that I have received of divine truth and the real presence of there is a God, the eternal Father, there is his Son, Jesus Christ, who I seek to be sealed to and have to be my eternal Father, and the feeling the power of the Holy Ghost. The most personal witnesses I've ever received in regards to that were not in the temple, but they were secluded by myself, heartfelt, sincere, and real prayers, communing with the Lord in a sacred place in the home that I personally said, this will be sacred ground to me and the Lord. And I, as best as I could, I dedicated that place for me to commune with him and to have the Spirit there. And that desire was fulfilled. Yeah. As I faithfully sought it, it was fulfilled and continues to be such.
And we see that principle applied with the saints leaving Nauvoo. When they were abandoning the temple they had just built, they received their ordinances. And when you read their diaries, yes, they're sad that they're having to leave the temple behind, right? If you've been there and you go down that road and you see the temple and you can imagine just having to leave it behind. It's a tragic and a sad and very spiritual, sacred experience to kind of put yourself in their shoes. But when you read their diary entries, they didn't feel like they were leaving the temple behind. They felt like they had received their ordinances and they were taking the temple with them.
Yeah. Well, this is what is so critical to understand about all that God gives. It goes back to the verse about taking or being blessed with things that time, moth, whatever, cannot corrupt, cannot rust. That the things God gives you, especially in the temple, those covenants and the power given, they are things that you take with you for eternity. They can't be taken from you. Try as the world might to interfere with that, and to intercede and prevent you from receiving those blessings. So that's a witness to those that don't have a spouse, maybe that's a member, or that their kids aren't members anymore, or whatever the case may be. If you are true and faithful and you have made covenants with the Lord, you have that power that no man can take from you. Nobody can remove that blessing and that covenant and the power that accompanies it from you. And that's what we're trying to say is dedicate sacred times, sacred places, or how does he say it? Sacred times, holy places. Create that in your home to whatever measure you can, and the Lord will manifest himself to you in your desire and your efforts to do so.
And this is kind of the key to unlocking the whole concept that your body is a temple.
Correct.
That what you're given, you take with you. And if you're cast out of your homeland and your home, well, you take the gospel with you and you reestablish it. And and then we can just continue seeking as Abraham did, that the Lord comes unto us and that he sups with us and we have his presence. He abides with us in our heart and also in our home. And
this is where it started in this dispensation.
All that out of one verse.
Yeah, that's right.